Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. We'll just let everyone get in and settled and connected to audio. Perfect. Lots of familiar faces, so that's always nice. Lots of friends already. There's our friend James. James, I'm going to just rename you really quickly.
I think I also need to rename Maryland too.
So excellent point of housekeeping. Want to just make sure that everybody can go ahead and make sure that your display name is your first and last name. And while you're in there, please go ahead and add your university so we can also learn where everybody's joining us from. So I'll just give folks 30 more seconds there to go ahead and make that update before I dive right in. Alrighty. So thanks all for logging on this morning. This is really going to be an informal hot topic conversation on professional development opportunities that are available to academic events professionals. As professionals, we want to stay on top of trends and successful practices. And hopefully the resources that we share here today from our presenters and from the larger group will help you do that. By way of giving you a sense of our agenda and also introducing our speakers, I'll share that we will hear from our CSU-UC EPN colleague, James Cuaresma, Senior Director of University Events and Protocol at Cal State LA. James is going to share about his experience as a volunteer leader with NAACO, which is the North American Association of Commencement Officers. So welcome, James. I'm going to ask that you jump off of mute really quickly and just say a quick hello so you pop up on people's screens.
Hi, everybody.
There we go. Hi, James. Also joining us probably momentarily will be Marcus Jones. He's Chief of Staff at Arizona State University's. Oh, there he is. Hi, Marcus.
There he is.
He's Chief of Staff at Arizona State University's Watts College of Public Service and Community Solutions. And he is also involved with NAACO, and he'll be sharing information about the NAACO certificate programs. Marcus, want to jump off of mute as well and just say a quick hello so people can see you when they come up on screen?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Jones. Thank you all so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you all shortly.
Awesome. Great to have you, Marcus. And additionally, we'll hear from Jim Hooker, Executive Director of Academic Programs at the Special Events Company. He's here to talk to us about the Academic Events Professionals Conference. Hi, Jim. Same deal. Please jump off of mute and say a quick hello for folks.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Awesome. And then towards the end of today's session, I'll go ahead and show the group how to access the slide decks from our recent 2024 CSU-UC EPN conference, which was lovely. And thank you again to James and all the volunteers that helped pull that off at Cal State LA last month. Feels like a little bit longer, but it was just last month. And then before we jump into our first speaker, I want to again go over a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, please make sure your display name is actually your first and last name, and that while you're in there, go ahead and add your university name so we can again know where you're joining us from. We're going to ask that any questions for our presenters that you guys use the Q&A pod that's going to be available in the menu of your Zoom window. Please don't put the questions for our presenters into the chat because it'll likely get lost in some of the conversation later. You also have an opportunity to just come off the mute. It's a pretty small, friendly group to ask your questions live after we hear from each of our speakers. And you can use the chat for sharing resources or thoughts with the larger group, and even direct messaging some friends that you might see on the Zoom today. So that's going to be the place to do it. With that, going to turn the focus over to James to tell us about his experience volunteering with NAACO and how that probably enhances his career. So James, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sam. And again, my name is James Cuaresma. I'm the Senior Director for University Events and Protocol at Cal State LA. And I have been a member of NAACO for, I would say, over 10 years now. And for a lot of the folks that are attending, a big part of our responsibility, if that is under your portfolio, is commencement planning. And so with me, when I started my position in 2014, January 1st, 2014, a big part of it was obviously reimagining and redoing our commencement ceremonies. And so just like with everybody who's thrown into the position, I was looking for resources on how to be able to basically do how to do this, because there is no training manual for commencement specifically. And through a postcard that I received over the mail, They talked about a group of individuals, professional individuals from other universities in the United States and Canada, and they had an upcoming conference that February. So I started my position January, so that February was a conference in Seattle, and my vice president pretty much registered me and bought me a ticket, and off I go. And so that conference was really eye-opening to me, just for the fact that, again, I've never planned a commencement before. I've done a lot of events, a lot of large-scale events as my role with the alumni office and in my role at a previous institution in San Francisco State, but never to that scale. And this particular organization, that's all they do is talk about commencement. And so basically from then on, I've been a member, and I've been an active member for several years as part as being a volunteer and a board member. So I started off as a volunteer for their annual conference, and their annual conference tends to switch off depending on the region. So there are several regions within the North American Association of Commencement Officers, and basically each region hosts the annual conference at a specific time. And since we do have members in Canada, it goes back to Canada every like as several years, so that we'll be able to touch all the regions that the organization has a presence in. And so from there, I was tapped into becoming a regional director, which pretty much I was assigned a specific region, which is the Southwest, and that covered California, Nevada, and Arizona, and Utah. And it's basically coordinating with the board along with other committees to be able to engage members and host as much as possible a lot of events as much as we can within those regions. Within the state, encourage members to host happy hours or host a regional meeting specifically. And then from there, as I got more involved, I was tapped into joining the board of directors, and I was able to be part of the board of directors for 3 years. And I just termed out in 2022, and I still continue to be a part of NAACO, but more as a regular civilian, as you could say. And I believe that for this upcoming conference, I will be assisting again with the annual conference, just because it's basically in our backyard at Long Beach. So with that, I did want to share a couple of things, and it's primarily their website, and it's so that I could share on how, especially if your institution is a member of NAACO, and you're kind of on the fence as far as how you can be more involved. There are specific areas that you can be involved with immediately. They do have several committees, and this is from their membership, from their home website under membership, and there's a volunteer for NAACO section. And they do have a list of what those committee charters are and what the charge is. And so there are certain things that you can get involved in, especially if you are more interested in a specific area. Just like with CSU-UPN, it functions the same way that, if you're more into the communication side, into the planning of the annual conference, more in the membership side, that type of thing. This pretty much lists what those committee roles are. And these committees obviously are headed by a chair. And then each board member that has a specific task oversees that whole area. With that, these are the regions for NAACO. So it's divided up between regions. As you could tell, Canada is huge, but because the population in Canada is smaller, it just has two regions, which is basically the West and the East. And the other regions in the United States are carved out based on, again, member institutions. And on the About Us leadership page for NAACO, it pretty much will tell you who those representatives are. So as a member institution, especially here in Southwest, if you're curious, that is Whitney Smith, who I believe is a member. She is a member of this group. CSU-UPN is the regional director, and she's from UC Davis. And the assistant director is Marissa, who is from Arizona State University, who is and the same institution that Marcus is um, in Arizona. But you can see you can connect with other regional directors and assistant regional directors in that particular region to be able to either collaborate on events, those types of things. And sometimes that does occur at NAACO just because if we want to get a larger impact, especially if it's a topic that is very popular to discuss, we might combine with the Northwest to host a regional meeting, or Canada West, or the whole western side of the United States and Canada, so that we can hit as many member institutions as part of NAACO itself. And as far as for leadership, these are the board members for NAACO, and they're from all over the country and Canada. I think we have two Canadians as far as in our board, but they are all over the United States. And when you serve on the board, it is a 3-year commitment. And so that there is a transitionary period, and also obviously they'll be able to get a new person so that they can kind of transition easily into that position. And as for president, you are, again, it's a 3-year commitment as a past, current, incoming, current, and past president. And again, it allows for an easy transition between roles itself. And as far as member institutions, we do have several hundred that are part of the organization. And then you can click on each of the areas. As you can see for Southwest, a lot of these member institutions are probably familiar to you because they're probably in this call. They are a member of NAACO. Same thing with the Southeast, which is a huge area, which is the Southeast of the United States. South Central, this is an area that we are trying to grow specifically just because this area, there's a lot of institutions, but they're scattered, not as concentrated as it here in California or in the Northeast, which has lots of institutions in short distances just because of how compact that area is. So with that, go ahead and unshare. My experience with NAACO definitely has been a positive, and it has been amazing as far as being part of a professional board. This obviously allowed me to be able to leverage that experience when it comes to my own position here at Cal State LA. Because of obviously being part of a board, there are certain things that you get exposed to as far as how a board functions, specifically from soup to nuts, as far as developing a strategic plan, being able to do budget forecasting for the next 3 to 5 years, how that impacts the organization as far as, how the annual conference will be able to weather the storm during COVID. We were dealing with that, when I was on the board, that how can we weather the storm of not being able to have an annual conference, which is how the organization primarily is able to survive for this long, to be able to offer educational sessions for those 3.5 days, and along with the membership dues, how to do that. And so it's really been a very positive experience for me. And again, I was able to really use that experience with my own position and really leverage it to be able to, let's face it, we all want to get a better title per se and a better pay. And that did allow me to sort of leverage that, just because I'm able to say, hey, I got involved with this and this is really what I was able to do, and be able to bring it back to the university itself. So for folks that are heavily involved in commencement planning, and I know a lot of you are, and if you're not a member institution yet, we'll definitely recommend exploring NAACO, because just like with CSU-UPN, it is a good resource for you, because these are the folks that will speak your language. You sometimes don't even have to complete full sentences and they know exactly what you're talking about, and will be able to provide you immediately with what they did in their own campus. And I think the real value of this is that you might get ideas that somebody from the University of Maryland has been doing for years, but you've never heard of how they do it. Or somebody from Texas, which is like, this is how we do our hooding, or any of those things. So it does really provide you with a very broad perspective on how ceremonies can function and how they can work. And maybe you can't really copy it completely to the T, but you might be able to get some information and resources from that. But with that, that pretty much is my bit with that as far as for professional development and to talk about NAACO opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James. Want to just pause here and see if there are any questions for James on anything he shared about NAACO. I did have one question. What can you share a little bit more about membership? Kind of what's if there's a fee? How would folks go about securing that?
Yes, and so as I mentioned, NAACO itself is obviously self-supporting. So for that to be able to function, it has a few. Basically, it has three revenue sources to be able to support the programming and the annual conference. One is an annual membership fee, and it's an institution membership fee, so it's not a per person. So if, let's say, like Cal State LA joins, then that means whoever wants to attend the conference or to be part of these, they have also monthly calls called also hot topics and also regional meetings and those types of things. It is free for them to attend. And there is no fee for the virtual side. Now, if they are attending the conference, that's the second revenue source for the organization, which is the um, uh, conference fees itself, and that pretty much pays for um, the conference because the conference is traveling all around the country and in Canada. Cost obviously will vary, and so it allows us some cushion and basically be able to sustain the type of programming that they do. And then the other third is obviously through sponsorship. So a lot of the same sponsors that you might see at CSUPN is also at NAACO and others that typically deals with large scale events and specifically obviously with regalia vendors, those types of things. But there is an annual fee for institutions, and Marcus, I just typically just pay it automatically. I think it's what, 500
I
a
was
year.
hoping you didn't ask me. I was like, oh God, I don't remember what it
Yeah,
is.
I think
Like,
it just
let me find
increased
it.
this year to
I
500.
can confidently say it is between $450 and $500. I
Yes.
can confidently say that.
Well, thank you for hearing that question. That seems like a pretty reasonable fee for everything you're getting from the institution. Um, Heather has a more
Yeah,
specific question, yeah, in terms of
Sure.
the fees for some of the events.
I can
So,
take that one.
oh, sure.
Okay, thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Marcus.
Marcus.
Thank you, Heather, for asking that question. So, hi all. As they mentioned, my name is Marcus. I serve as the chief of staff here at ASU's Watts College, and I also serve as the president-elect. So, for when it comes to the annual conference, I can't say what the exact fee is going to be because I do not remember at this exact moment. But I can, with confidence, say it's not going to be more than $1,100 or $1,200 this year. We have made some changes to the conference, and we're making sure that we are being price conscious as an organization to you all and all of you, your respective budgets. I mean, I see it here. I get my budget cut every year. So we also get that because we are all in that planning. So we are working to reduce that registration fee over the course of a few years. But I want to say, as of now, it will be at the highest $1,100 or $1,200, if I remember correctly, for this upcoming 2025 year.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus. Well, let's go ahead and just transition into what you have to share about NAACO and the certificate programs that are offered.
Give me 1 second. Let's share my screen. So there we go. Once again, so thank you all for having me. Here is my contact information if you would like to take that, and Sam and both James and Phyllis all have that as well. So a little bit about our educational offering. So I currently serve as the president-elect, but prior to that, I was our director for education for the last 2 years, and as well as the chair of the education committee. Been doing education for us for a long time. So a little bit about what we do throughout the year. We like to have a year-long of engagement of education. So we try to do what we also call is a monthly hot topic, which is presented by members of our various institutions around any topic that they want to do so. And we also do networking ones as well. So for example, in July, we did a networking where I like to say we all kind of trauma bond about how did our ceremonies go over this last spring. And we take away, we bounce ideas off each other, we celebrate each other. And then in our upcoming September one, we're planning one that we're kind of looking at is, so you want to be a director, and, talking to a few members of how did they do their journey of becoming a member, their journey of becoming a director for their institution and ceremonies. We've also done things about transitioning from print to digital programs. It's really whatever a member wants to talk about, and they curate that. We have conversations, or it may be a more formal presentation. We also have our annual conference, which takes place normally every February, as James mentioned, all across the country. So this year we'll be in Long Beach. The following year we'll be in Boston. And then for 2027, we are looking at Orlando, and 2028, we're looking at somewhere in the Midwest. So that takes place. That's normally a 3-day conference of about 24 educational sessions, as well as networking, and lots of fun. We also host regional meetings. That's planned by the folks from that map that you saw of folks who want to host a regional meeting. And we recognize this is a way for folks to get together who can't necessarily afford to always go to the conference. So this is a more cost benefit way for some folks to engage who can't afford the conference. So I will plug, save the date. We will be hosting one here at ASU in our Tempe campus on October 18th. So as you all are part of CSU and USC, you all fall within that Southwest region. So if you are available, we hope you can join us. More information should be coming out within the next couple of weeks. We also do 1 to 2 extra engagements a year. And what that means is it's normally a speaker or somebody that we think is of use to our folks. So we used to host this guy named Eric Stewart, who really talks a lot about crowd safety and security and whatnot at your venue. And he does a little certificate. And so I have a little asterisk there because that is only available to members. And then also that is normally an additional fee above and beyond the normal membership registration. Then I'll talk about the certificate program shortly. And then the last thing that we also offer in terms of education, but I also call more networking, is our NAACO Connect website that's available to our members. That is an online forum, probably similar to the SharePoint that I think Sam was mentioning, where it is a forum where people can just say, hey, where do you buy your regalia from? And people say, here's where we get our regalia from. Or, hey, just anything that people think about. So we have that there. People ask questions, and people engage, and it's a great space. So a little bit about our academic ceremony certificate program. It's a 2-year program designed to help you learn the basics of planning your ceremony, for anybody who is new to the field, but then also for those who are seasoned, demonstrating that they are their excellence of academic ceremony. So we have 2 years. The first one being the foundational year, where that is more quiz-based, where you're just kind of answering questions. We use, I didn't pull the book out, a book by April Harris called Academic Ceremonies, I think is what it's called. I can see the book, but I can't read the font that far. So that's you go through each chapter, and we picked out what do we think were the key things for you to know. You answer the questions, obviously, take a quiz, just like anything like that. Then the second year, and you can do this, it's designed to be done in 2 years, but we have some folks who take 3 years. We have some folks, thanks to you, James, we have some folks who take 4 years. We want to make sure that you have the time to do it as you see fit. Then we have the applied year, and I like to say that's called the choose your own journey. And so we have a variety of texts that you can pick from that then you can then read and answer other questions about, but it's all things still related to academic ceremonies, event planning, but then we also toss in some of those other duties as assigned things that we all have to kind of do in our roles. And so we answer those questions. And then in addition to that, there is what we call a membership engagement activity that you do, whether that being presenting at our annual conference, a regional meeting, a hot topic. For those of you who hate presenting in front of people, we also have a written option where you can write an article. And then we also have some other things that we allow for that. So that is a little bit about our certificate program. I know I speak very fast. Thank you for having me. So are there questions that I can answer?
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus. And someone who's also a little bit conscious about speaking fast, I think you did a great job. So, one kind of maybe easy question for you. If you could kind of point to one thing that added probably the most value in your work with NAACO, what would you say that is? Or yeah, what's your thoughts there?
I think it's the ability to connect with other people who are experiencing the same thing that you do. And I would say that is, you have a problem, if you put that problem out there, 9 times out of 10, someone else has that problem and they have a solution. And what I appreciate is that everyone is willing to share that solution. There's not this gatekeeping like, oh, this is something that we do and we're only going to do it. We're not going to tell you how we do it. So I think that's what I see a lot of our members benefit from, is that even if you're seasoned, you've been doing this for a long time, something always new is going to come up. And so it's just being able to have that forum and that ability to connect with the person and figure out what that solution is going to be. My favorite, I see people sitting around the conference and they just talk and it works well. And people just answer questions and people love it. So that's what I would say is probably one of the biggest benefits.
Awesome.
Jim, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but Jim, I know you used to work at UT. Maybe, I don't know, did you get any benefit from Doug and Josh being a part of it?
Yeah, you bring up Doug. Doug Boland was the co-founder of NAACO, along with Melissa Werner over at ASU, and Doug reported to me. I was head of events for the University of Texas, and I will tell you, I mean, I've had the privilege of being a keynote speaker at NAACO, and I think the business development opportunities that you get through that organization in the ceremonial side are absolutely outstanding. And I concur completely with you, Marcus, about the willingness of people to share their ideas with each other and to be completely open with each other and give their recommendations and thoughts on how to improve best practices. And I think that's what we're all here for. Anybody who's worked in the academic world knows the challenges that we have with budgets and capacities and teams and all that sort of stuff, and learning smarter ways to work and more effective ways to work, and finding those vendors who understand what we do is such a tremendous way to operate. And so I commend all the work y'all do with NAACO. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the kind remarks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marcus. Appreciate you sharing all that information with us. Jim, if it's all right, shall we talk about AEP?
Sure. Do a brief introduction of myself. My name is Jim Hooker. I'm currently the Executive Director of Academic Programs for the Special Event Company. And kind of give you a brief history of how I got to where I am, because the Special Event Company is a for-profit company that does events. And I literally just started here 6 months ago. But I've been connected to the Special Event Company for 18 years because they are the founding founders of the Academic Event Professional Conference. They created it 18 years ago. It broke off of the Special Event Trade Show. It's called the Special Event. It's the largest trade show for event experts in the United States. It is now called CaterSource Plus the Special Event. And AEP grew out of a session that used to take place there. So a little bit about myself real quick. I've been doing academic events for 22 years specifically. I was the Associate Senior Vice President for University Relations and Special Events for the University of Southern California. I did that for 10 years. I then had my own company and I produced milestone events for universities. I've done 7 campaign launches for different institutions and campaign rollouts. So there's big high level needs throughout the United States and Europe. And then I went to the University of Texas, where I was the head of special events for UT for the last 5 years. And since January, I've now moved over to this company and became the chair of the academic event professional. So I'm now the chair of that organization as well. I had the privilege of also hosting, like I said, the very first AEP conference at the University of Southern California. So I have a long history with it. Something, that's very different nowadays that we did not have for those of us of a certain age. We didn't have CSEP, we didn't have CMM or CMP designations and certifications that we could take for training. NAACO didn't exist, AEP didn't exist. We sort of learned in hard knocks. We learned by doing events, the old-fashioned way, and that was by making mistakes and learning from that. Now there's this incredible support system that's in place that really allows people to share ideas on things that you don't do, common mistakes in protocol, like which side should the American flag go on, when you're up on staging. I mean, simple things like that. And of course, best practices. And I think, NAACO being one organization, I think AEP is another organization that really puts together professional development for our attendees and the people who participate in it. I would send you to our website, but we literally are redesigning our entire website, and it goes live this next week. And so it's offline while we are doing testing. So I cannot share any of our site with you. But if it's okay, Sam and Phyllis, if y'all are willing to share the attendees' email address, I can send them the link when it goes live if they'd like to check it out to look at what AEP is and dig further into it. What we have. So the Academic Event Professional, this year's conference will take place in February 23rd and 24th. It's going to be our host. We always host with an institution. So Florida International University is going to be our host this year. It's going to take place on their campus, the Biscayne Bay campus, beautiful location right on the bay. It's a 2-day conference. And the reason why I bring up the special event and how it grew out of the special event, we always go in conjunction. And we have traditionally gone in conjunction, I think except for 2 years, with the special event. So the reason we do that is a lot of people get more value out of being able to come to the Academic Event Professional Conference for the first 2 days, and then they're always in the same city. And then you can attend the special event trade show as well. And that's where we really get a lot of new ideation and new technologies and things that are coming in. The Academic Event Professional, what we train is, besides ceremonial, we also do development events or advancement events, presidential events, alumni, student events, and we touch a little bit on athletic events, but they tend to have their own operations, and they operate differently depending on the size of their institution and the size of the athletic programs that they have within it. But it's really an opportunity, again, to get with a bunch of colleagues, and as you say, you found your people. Ask questions. We do a plenary session. Then we have breakout sessions with particular topics. We do table rounds where you get into some more immersive conversations as well on particular topics. So instead of just having 3 breakouts, we could have as many as 10 or 12 table discussions that you move into, and you'll put, probably 12 or 15 people at those tables, and you'll take a particular topic and really delve into that. And people will share their ideas from the different schools from all across the country. And I think that's another wonderful thing about going to these types of conferences is you get to look at how other people do things. And believe me, large school, small school, private school, public school, they all have their ways, but just because they're one of those things does not mean they all operate the same way. All large schools do not operate the same way. Even our reporting structures, whether you report up through university relations, through student affairs, whether you go through the provost's office or you go through the president's office or the development office, we all have different reporting structures. And it's kind of good to hear other people and how they manage and work through those various things. So some more things on AEP I'm just going to pull up our website that's under construction so I can tell you some pieces about it. Our registration should be opening, everything should be opening with it next week. We are rolling out our whole new website. And to be in AEP or to go to our website and see it, we invite you to check it out and see what it's all about. The conference itself, the cost for this year's conference, let me pull this up. The early bird registration will be until October 1st, and that's going to be $850 to attend. And our host hotel, I believe, is the Aloft Hotel. Just click on here to make sure. It is the Aloft Hotel. yes, Aloft Hotel, which will be in North Miami is actually where we're located officially. The TSE, the special event show, is actually in Biscayne, is in Fort Lauderdale. It's going to be at the Broward Convention Center in Fort Lauderdale, which is about 35, 40 minutes away. Again, we would have gone right there, but there's not an institution that could host us right there in Fort Lauderdale. So we'll be in North Miami, and people can then either change hotels or stay there and drive up to the special event. Part of what we have on our site, if you are interested in going, we actually have a template letter that says convince your boss. So if you're interested in it, you can take that template and it'll talk about the what we do and what the conference offers, and you can plug in your information and send that to your boss as a request to attend the conference. We, like other institutions, organizations, have sponsors, and there are a lot of the ones you're very familiar with who work with us, from photographers to printing to regalia, if it has to do a ceremonial. Our advisory board is made up of, I believe, currently is 14 members of people from across various institutions, and we are looking for new board members. We would ask that you attend at least one conference before you apply to be a board member, so you can understand how our operations go. We do have volunteer opportunities throughout the year. And the other thing that we're launching this year with AEP, and this is something that really allows everybody to connect that did not exist before. So this is a whole brand new offering. We are launching the AEP Fellows. And what that is you join as a fellow. I believe it's going to be $100 per person or $500 per institution for up to 8 people to be a member of that group. And it gives you access to, one, the Fellows Forum, which is where you are connected to anybody else who logs in and wants to become a fellow. You can ask questions in real time to each other. And you can pose a question out there and say, hey, I'm going to be traveling to San Francisco with a bunch of my alumni. What recommendations do you have for locations? And people who are fellows who are in that part of the country respond and say, oh, I've done it here. Here's my point of contact. So it allows you a full connection of contacts. LinkedIn, when you do that, traditionally, you have to meet the person, get to know them a little bit before you start asking questions or know their role. With AEP, if you're a member of AEP, we all know basically our positions are all event production, and we all do that within institutions. So it really gives you a more direct way to communicate with them. Secondly, we're going to have our ideas gallery that'll be available for the AEP fellows, and that'll be where people can post their print materials, things that they've created for swag, giveaways. Could be the looks of their events. It could be something that they think is really unique. It could be ideas of entertainment that they had, and you can go through the ideas gallery and get ideas on different things that you can utilize for your events. The other thing will be our blogs, and we're asking members of AEP to submit blogs for consideration to be posted. And we'll always have a monthly blog that you can see on the website, the homepage website. But if you become a fellow, it allows you to go through past blogs and get ideas and look at things through the library of past blogs. So all of that will become active starting next week. Again, I apologize, I can't share it. I'm looking at it on the screen above me, but can't send it down right now. So that's who we are and what we do, and we welcome more attendees. I know you'd mentioned when we got on here, one of your colleagues down in San Diego has hosted this, and we've had a long history of institutions that have hosted us in the past. We've been at Emory, UC San Diego, University of Central Florida, University of Texas, Boston University, Vanderbilt, a lot of different locations across the country. So that is my information at this time. Any questions, or we can open it up for everybody at this point?
Yeah, really opening up to everybody. And thank you for giving us a sneak peek of the awesome AEP website that's about to debut. I've dropped it in the chat, but we'll make sure to get that link out to everybody in our kind of mailing list as well. But yeah, calling anybody here on the call in case they have a question for Jim and all the awesome information he just shared about AEP.
I'll just say AEP is a great conference. I've only ever been once, but I enjoyed my time thoroughly there when I got to go in Vegas. It was actually the last one right before COVID. That was a fun one. I was on a plane as we got the notification, no more travel. Sorry,
I will tell you. And if you were at that conference, if you were at that conference, it was the most amazing experience. We arrived and we were sitting there and we were all hearing about COVID. And at the start of the conference, again, it's only 2 days. At the start of the conference, we said, okay, how many people have already had events that have canceled? We're hearing about this COVID thing. Have you all had any changes? And I think maybe 15 hands went up in the room. And normally we have around 250 attendees at our conferences. A day later, at the end of that conference, I mean, literally everybody was on their phone over the next 2 days. By the end of the conference, we said that again, how many of you have had changes to your current events? And it was probably 90% of the room over those 2 days had a complete shutdown of events going across the country. And then we were all rushing to try to get out of Vegas. I actually had to go to the special event trade show immediately after that because I was up for an award. And so I had to attend that. And I stayed there, and it was the most bizarre thing to go around Vegas. Had nobody in the casinos, nobody anywhere. And I'm like in Las Vegas, like, I need to be filming this and use this for a future movie or something. This is so cool.
Well, and Jim, the best part about that AEP conference was the fact that both Stacy and what's her name? Your colleague,
Sally.
Sally,
So.
rallied to have a session about force majeure clauses in contracts because everybody was freaking out about how much this is going to cost them. And so y'all pivoted and had a special session for everybody to talk about it. And I thought that was really great because, sorry, I'm plugging AEP as well because I've been to the conference many times. And it was really great because people had all these questions that were coming up. So there was this kind of open forum in the big conference room at UNLV, and we all started chatting about it. And I think it set a lot of people's mind at ease on how to move forward. So that I thought that was a great part of that conference.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things is, in real time, that's a situation none of us hope to go through again. But I do know that when topics come up that are relevant, say around the conference, we will address those within them because we all understand we do have to deal with those in reality. Terrorist threats, if things start popping up in perhaps some kind of environment where there could be more of that, we have to discuss what that is. At the time of 9/11, I was actually working in Hollywood events, big production for stuff. And I was in charge of red carpet arrivals for the Grammys. And we literally had to shut down the entire Grammys and it stayed, we didn't do them for about 8 weeks. And then when we came back, we had no audience. We had sharpshooters on the buildings. It completely changed. Our entire world completely changed. So I think we bring that as well through these conferences. It's a way to learn about changes that are happening in society that may affect academia and our environments as well. And that's a perfect example that you just put there, Adrian.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate you having you here with us. If it's all right with everybody, I'll just go ahead and just briefly share my screen to give everybody a scoop on where they can find some of the slide decks from the recent CSU-UC EPN conference. And then after that, we could open it up for some kind of general Q&A, both to our presenters. And if anybody's just maybe logged on to today's session and is curious about how to grow their professional understanding or to get some professional development or training on a particular subject, that'll be the space to kind of get ideas from the group here. So humor me for a few minutes while I share my screen, and then we can dive into probably what's going to be a much more exciting conversation with the group after. So here on our screen, and this link is coming in the chat very shortly, is the CSU-UC EPN intranet site. It's somewhat public. So for those of us that can find it, it's there. If you navigate over to the conference section and you check out the subpage on session descriptions, you'll see that on some of the sessions, there's already a link to explore slide decks and some additional resources that were provided from our presenters. You also have the session descriptions there to kind of really get a sense of what was talked about in a particular session. I'll highlight to go ahead and check out the resources available under our keynote speaker, Rich Bracken. That was a really popular, really successful keynote. And he was super generous in both giving us a slide deck of the presentation and some additional resources when it comes to checking emotional intelligence and some of the talking points there. So this is your place to kind of catch up on anything you may have missed in that conference, or to go back and check any of the slide decks that might have jogged your memory from something that you learned while you were there. In a few weeks, we'll probably transition that section of the conference into our resources page. This is another key place where we kind of just add in all the resources that we collect across the network. As you'll see, there's kind of an archive of the last couple of conferences. So that's what's going to happen in 2024 really shortly, as we get ready to roll out the information for our 2025 conference, which is going to be at UC Berkeley, and it is July 9th to the 12th of 2025. So we look forward to seeing everybody there for another fun time as well. And with that, I'll stop my screen share and just invite if anybody has questions about the EPN conference. Alrighty. Well, we've heard a lot of information from folks across the industry and a couple of associations that bring people together in the academic event space. Did anybody join this session rather to kind of get some particular insight on an item or an area that they're curious and learning about? We got it all figured out and we're all going to join AEP and NAACO and get involved with the events professionals. Okay, well, that's great.
Or I'm going to say, Sam, we could also ask them if they have like a professional development that they've participated in that they'd like to share.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anybody have additional recommendations for the group?
I know that in speaking with Marcus briefly, when we met, he said that they actually have a group called, I think it's Mecca, and it's actually on your campus. And I believe that there's somebody at Stanislaus or someplace, they actually have a group that meets, like they have all their event professionals, or maybe at San Diego State, they meet with all their event professionals on a monthly basis. So it'd be interesting to know what else anyone else is doing within their campus.
I can go really quickly. Yeah, so at ASU, we have what is called MECA, and it stands for Meeting Event Coordinators and Associates. That's what happens when you have so many acronyms, you forget what it actually stands for. This was started a few years ago, long time ago, for those who just plan events on campus. And we like to say it's for everyone who is an event coordinator or a meeting coordinator, but also that admin who just got tasked with planning a conference. And we get together monthly to talk about different topics, either issues specifically related to here at ASU, or just other things that we want to talk about to meet and, I like to use the word trauma bond with one another about what's happening at the campus and learn from each other.
Yeah, I will add to that. Just when I was at USC, we actually put together two different event groups. One was the special event planners from across campus. So that was one group, and we all shared best practices, vendors, things like that. But we also put together a campus-wide event group, and that involved police department, facilities, catering, athletics, university events. And we met once a month. And what we did with that is we had the big problem at USC with people doing events on campus we never knew about. And popping up that we were unfamiliar were going to happen. So we created a process where every single event that was on campus had to register for security purposes through the Department of Public Safety. And by registering your event, it would sort of provide a notification for all of these groups that met once a month to make sure that we had coverage for what those things were. The reason it became an issue is one day we showed up on campus and there were 4,000 Pakistanis celebrating a festival in the middle of campus that nobody knew about. Like it was a Pakistani festival and no one knew about it. Parking wasn't available, ready for it, power, restrooms, buildings, all that sort of stuff. So we had to learn, how do we work with the community and work with each other? So every event was listed. We were not allowed to, the group was not there to say, no, you can't have an event. We didn't judge whether they had it or not. It was just a way to register. If there was an emergency, an earthquake, we knew where people were. If they were having an event downstairs in a building, we would know where emergency services would have to be. But I will tell you, that was an incredibly helpful group to put together. If y'all don't have this on your campus, it really helped to sort of weed through what our needs were for each department. If a student group was going to do an event, were they going to have food and beverage? What are the rules with that? Could they would automatically, like when they registered, they would automatically get an email sent to them with a questionnaire that they would fill out and send back in. So they didn't, we weren't waiting for students to reach us. We weren't waiting for dean's offices to reach us. We were actually finding out when they just said, we're going to do an event, we would send stuff immediately, automatically out to them. And then they would fill it out and send it back. So it really streamlined our process. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Great tip. And I know that's kind of a recurring item that's come up in some of the EPN programming as well. But yeah, we'll take in. Thanks, Jim. Jonathan, you have your hand up. What's your thought or question?
So I would just wanted to add for those of us who are in the CSU, we have a campus tours task force of all the campus tours professionals. And we also are venturing out to add to that the folks that do outreach programming and events. So if you're part of that group, right, in admissions or outreach, really that's where my take has been is trying to find out how do we leverage some of the ways that on the academic side or on the university event side, how we can take some of the things that they've learned and the way that they do events and bring that to the outreach side, right? I oversee all the outreach programming and events in our office, so that's really what I've sort of been involved with. I'm part of an organization called CSU-UC. I'm sure many of you may have heard of that, the Collegiate Information and Visitor Services Association. They do an annual program for folks specifically around visitor services for different universities, and it's nationwide. That's a really great conference to also go and learn about university-related programming and events, but obviously specific to outreach and recruitment side. So I could share that in the chat as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks so much for bringing our attention to those as well. I know that that overlaps with a lot of the CSU EPN's network portfolio. So much appreciated. Thanks, Jonathan. James, what's your thought?
Yeah, and actually, I just wanted to kind of expand on what Jim mentioned. Our campus also has something called the Youth Facilities Group. And it serves almost the same function as Jim mentioned at USC, that I think I'm pretty sure all of us have the same issue of having different groups or different departments, colleges that does events, and the communication side is sort of not really getting out there as far as Jim mentioned, whether or not campus police knew that there was this large event happening in one section of the campus, or they're just thinking, oh yeah, we can do this without checking with risk management or checking with catering on what is possible on campus. And so it is a formalized group, and it's a constantly growing and evolving work group on campus, but it's basically different units of the campus that are involved in every kind of event on campus. So as Jim mentioned, like as far as facilities, catering, public safety, risk management, the Office of the President, university advancement, different areas, and representatives from the colleges itself. And this is really where we ask any group, whether it be internal or external group that is planning to host an event on campus, to present at this particular group. And we try to meet twice a month, but if there's not a lot of activity, it's once a month. And we don't approve anything, just like how Jim mentioned and their group at USC. We didn't approve anything, but we provide guidelines on how they should approach things. So if a student organization basically saying we want to do this event, somebody from the student affairs side is basically guiding them through the process of how do you register your event. And sometimes we do let them know, like, if this event's in 2 weeks and you haven't done any of this, you might want to reconsider or maybe rethink this, because some of them, say, oh, we're planning to have 200 people. I'm like, you have 2 weeks, and then you haven't sent out anything, that type of stuff. And so we do try to have something like that too in place. We are, again, with conversations like with groups of people like this group and other groups, we are constantly evolving that group to make it more formalized, because we don't have a centralized events team. I know some campuses do, but we don't. And what we're trying to do is sort of create a task force basically for the university, so that we'll be able to really guide different departments around campus. Because let's face it, the event planner for a college or a department really it might be a coordinator or an admin who was designated as the event planner for that particular area. And so it's not that they're going to have the training or the resources immediately available to them. So we developed that here, and I'm sure there's something similar, from other campuses that function the same way.
Awesome. And before I call on Ron, I'll just call people's attention to, thank you, James, for sharing that input there. I know that that's continues to be an item that event professionals are dealing with. And Phyllis, that might be a bit of a lead for another future hot topic to call on. But before I call on Ron, I want to just call attention to the chat where we've added another protocol resource. So if anybody wants to dive deeper into that line of work, and not just so much commencement, but also like if you're hosting dignitaries on campuses or those items, that's another resource for folks to check out as well. And then Ron, what's your thought?
Yeah, James, this is directed at James and the other schools. James, we did a task force years ago, and when it first started, we had good input and good buy-in by the different divisions. And you are right, a lot of the coordinators from departments get tasked with doing events, and they were looking for help. But then, because we had no real backing or guidance or legitimacy from up top, people just quit going. People didn't attend. How do you attack that at Cal State LA, getting the backing of your administration where these groups feel like they have to be part of it?
The main lead person or the main entity that created a group is with our administration and finance. So with that already does have legitimacy because it is an appointed position by the VP for administration and finance, who oversees a large portfolio, and that obviously includes facilities, public safety, risk management. And so that person was tasked to really be the lead liaison for any external group that wants to host an event at Cal State LA. And because of that, they kind of wanted to make sure that, all the internal groups are also aware. I got involved due to obviously my role with commencement and also with specific advancement events that when we do fundraisers, galas, those types of stuff. So everybody who's part of that organization, as far as the ones that do provide the information to departments and groups, are the directors of those specific programs. And so the director for risk management is the primary representative that obviously provides guidelines and support to folks that want to know what, like, hey, if we're planning to have a student organization is planning to have one of those mechanical bulls in the middle of the campus, what do we do? The risk management director being like, well, these are the steps that you need to do and stuff like that. Our facilities director sits on it, and one of our lieutenants from public safety. So as far as for legitimacy, it does involve campus leadership that can actually say yes or no, that this is the process to be able to follow. So it is important that those, at least, if you are planning to create something like that, that those specific people are at the table. Just because if it is a coordinator or just a representative, not just to say just, they're not going to have the sort of the authority to say that this is the process, how this is done on campus. So at least it's coming straight from the person who probably authorized that, no, you have to fill out this form to be able to do that.
So thank you so much, James, for that insight, and thank you, Ron, for putting out that question. We are over time, so I am just going to give a big thanks to Jim and James and Marcus, who had to leave us already, but for joining us today and sharing all the awesome work you guys have been up to with your respective entities and organizations. I will just leave the group with a reminder that the next one of these hot topic sessions is on September 26th. It's a Thursday, and it's the same time, 11 a.m. to noon. We don't have a topic confirmed, though. I think we might have a lead already, but stay tuned for future communication about what we'll be talking about then. And if you have any suggestions for topics that we can pick up in these sessions, please send them to Phyllis Grillo, our chair of the EPN. And with that, thank you all so much for logging on today. Best of luck with all your events and all that you do. And have an awesome month until we see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.